I'll just get started then. Okay, so the first thing that I wish I knew about as an undergrad was being homesick. I think I've always been so family centered. I've like never really been away from my family for a long time that I didn't realize like what like it feels like and how bad you could get it. So as you know, I'm in a whole different state, like halfway through um, the country. And yeah, so one of the things that I've like learned over the years is that it helps a lot to kind of call them. And I think that school can be really busy, so scheduling that into your week is helpful. And then another thing that I wish I knew was that it feels good to kind of share with your family a little bit of like the world that you are kind of experiencing being away from them. I think it's good for your family to kind of hear about that. It's like nice, but it's also good for you to kind of feel some connection with them, in that they're also like kind of hearing what you're experiencing. Um, yeah, okay. And also it also allows them to provide like you comfort, so I guess it's like a win-win situation for both you and your family. The second thing I wish I knew as an undergrad, well, I don't know if like people who go to school in California really experience this, but like if people go to a different state where they actually experience real seasons like winter, so there's like this thing called seasonal affective disorder, which is very similar to symptoms of depression, but it's like affected by the changes in the weather or the season. This is usually around winter when you feel like very low energy, you're a little moody, or like you have difficulty concentrating. So one of the things I learned, so first year winter term, right, first winter ever, I was like, what is this? I'm like not my usual self, like I'm not getting my things done, what's happening? And luckily upperclassman actually told me about what seasonal affective disorder was, and I actually went to our student health and counseling center, and they helped me with a happy light, which sounds funny, but so basically it's like light therapy, and it helps you kind of get the sunlight that you don't get during winter, and this is good because it kind of helps you with like your biological clock, and increase the serotonin level and like the melatonin levels, kind of keep that like essentially like the light triggers like the production of those things, which helps you feel better. Of course there are like more serious things that like the light itself can't just treat, but this is like one of those ways to treating it. And if it doesn't work, you kind of have to talk to student health and counseling to figure out like a better way to address it if it's more serious. Another thing that I kind of wish I thought of before really coming into Carleton, is how important food is when you're trying to think about your mental health. I as you can see by my flag, I'm from the Philippines, and I'm very used to a diverse type of food growing up in the Bay Area. So when I came to Minnesota, and like the closest thing to like ethnic food I have is like this Mexican restaurant like down the street. It's really hard, I think, when you turn, because I like food brings comfort for me, and it has like a lot of meaning in it. So when I like have food with family, it brings me like happy thoughts and warmth. So when I'm stressed, I kind of go for food. But when it's like hard for you to, it's hard for you to have access to that, it could also, I guess, make you feel a little like it contributes to you feeling a little under the weather, or kind of like not being able to take care of like that need, I guess. So I would totally recommend like looking up ways to prepare if you're going to a college where they don't have the types of food that you're accustomed to, like finding out ways to get to a place. Like, for example, like my friends and I sometimes go to the cities on the weekends to have like a wider range of options, or considering that when you're deciding which college to go to, for those high school seniors, high school juniors listening. Yeah. Let's see. So the next thing, I've kind of hinted at this already. You know, people get stressed at school, especially during midterms and finals. And one way to kind of like prepare for that is taking advantage of like the student health resources. So first, like, of course, you need to be in a good mental health situation where you are, like one of the things I mentioned earlier, right? Seasonal affective disorders, like that can impact your work. And by like addressing that, you kind of are able to get things done and like be a successful student. And you can't really address your mental health unless like you do go to the student health center, and then also ask yourself if like you're being good to yourself. Like, are you feeding yourself? Are you taking a shower? Are you getting the sleep that you need? Type of thing. So I think like really like thinking of how like your well-being, I guess, would be very helpful to do and like develop those habits like right from the get-go, because I think I didn't really think about mental health until probably winter term, when I was kind of really getting hit by all of the seasonal affective disorders and like all of my work kind of stressing me out. And this is something that I still constantly work on, even now. But of course, like I now have like resources and the tools to kind of deal with this and make sure to continue like asking myself if I'm okay. Let's see. The next thing, oh yeah, so before I like move on to the next thing, I like want to remind everybody that college is something that's not like, let's get it over with, you know, it's 4 whole years, and you want to make sure you get to the end and like, you know, get to graduation, because you're putting in a lot of hard work. But in order to do that, you kind of have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I can't like emphasize that enough. Like, if you're not taking care of your mental health, your physical health suffers. And if your physical health suffers, your like academic work also suffers. And one of the things that kind of makes the whole process a little bit more fun is study abroad. So I honestly like recommend this to anybody, like any college student, if the opportunity presents itself in your school. And I think most colleges have study abroad opportunities or is partnered with an organization that helps with that. Yeah, so I think it's like a human experience, and it's kind of it gives you, by studying abroad, it gives you like a perspective and kind of gives you a better understanding of like your place globally. I think like being in high school, sometimes it's hard for you to imagine yourself in like the bigger context, and being abroad kind of helps with that. It also forces you to self-reflect and kind of navigate like the different identities that you hold. It also kind of, well, for me personally, like I felt that I like rediscovered myself and my passion. So I studied abroad when I was a sophomore, and this was after like the first year where I was just like, OMG, like this was a lot for me. Like, do I still want to keep going? This is like another 3 whole years. And then like by studying abroad, I kind of remembered like why I was inspired, why I wanted to go to college in the first place, and like what were my passions, and like what type of thing mattered to me, like what I wanted to study and like why I wanted to do that. Actually, studying abroad influenced my research for the Mellon Mace undergraduate fellowship, and also influenced a lot of the theoretical framework in my senior thesis. And then also I want to, so these are some of the pictures while I was abroad. Again, going abroad also helps you develop like lifelong friends and your support network. And it's a lot of fun. You get to eat a lot of good food from all over the world, depending on where you go. Yeah, so the next thing that I wish I knew as an underclassman was knowing, well, I guess I didn't really know how helpful resident assistants are. I'm an RA now, and my RA probably knew a lot of the stuff and could have helped me with a lot of the things I was going through, but I didn't know that I can really reach out to them. So for me, for my residents, I go out of my way to give them different types of food. So I host a lot of events where we make dinner or we go out to have dinner. And they also can, if you already don't know which resource to go to, they can also help lead you to the right resource if they can't help you themselves. Or you could just kind of have a good conversation with them if you don't feel like talking to your friends, but you need to talk to someone, and they're they're a good person to go to. Or if you want to ask things you want to ask them about their classes or what type of classes you should take, and how did they decide their major, that type of things. So yeah, they could be helpful. Another resource would be the Dean of Students. So this I kind of learned about through my job as an RA and also through my friends. So sometimes serious things happen, I don't know, something happened, you needed medical attention, but then you missed a deadline, for example. The Dean of Students can help you get an extension on your papers, or if you need to take a test, but you missed the time to take that test, I think they can help you with that too. And then also, if it's more serious, for example, dealing with sexual assault, they can help you get access with the resources and which type of authorities to contact to, for example, file a restraining order. Okay, and then the next thing I wish I knew, being a freshman, I wish that I knew that going to professors during their office hours would have been very beneficial at that time, and it's still now. I definitely go to professors during the office hours, and they're actually a really good way to just bounce off ideas and integrate yourself in the academic community. For me, I've learned that professors kind of can either make you or break you. I think that they could be your number one fan, and support you with your own academic interests. My advisor now was my intro psych professor. He just kind of entertained all the different ideas I had, even though at the time I was kind of feeling insecure about them. I wasn't sure if it was worth studying, but just kind of by bouncing off ideas with him, he kind of led me through and guided me through the process of becoming a scholar. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. Okay. And then next, kind of I'm sure a lot of you guys participate in student organizations, but I think student organizations are very important. Just, you don't have to hold a leadership position within it, but by engaging in organizations that you care about helps you develop your support group, the community gives you a sense of like community and belonging, which again like helps with that process of making sure that you do get to that finish line. So when like, because like things can be good, but like other times like things can really suck, and by having that support group, they can kind of help you in those times. It's also a really good way to explore your passions and like your interests, of course. And it could also like teach you a lot of like soft skills as you go on, and if you do want to take leadership positions within like the student organizations that you're involved with, that's also very like applicable to like internships or like future jobs, for example. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to say about this one. I do want to make sure I have time for questions. So, okay. And then the last thing I think I want to talk about is the amount of funding and like opportunities your school probably offers. So I would advise like kind of looking through your college website. I think that's what I did towards the end of my freshman year and also my sophomore years, when like if you're thinking of something and you want to do something that's like related to pursuing an academic interest or like just interest in general, I think that the first thing you should go to is your school website, because they have like a ton of research funding, different fellowships, different scholarships for like even studying abroad. And again, like different off-campus experiences, and even like the career center. I'm sure like your school has like a similar job board type of thing, similar to like Indeed, where you can find like alums have worked at or do work at, and alums that are seeking for people from their own like school to work for or work with. So yeah, I think that there's like just explore, and then also you could always well, at least like in my experience at Carleton, I think that you could always find a way to propose a new project, for example, and like propose like to your department potential research that they might be willing to fund. So yeah, definitely look through your college website and look for opportunities there. Okay, so those are all the 10 things that I wish I knew as an underclassman that I guess I didn't find out until like sophomore, junior year. So, okay, I'm open for questions now.
Thanks, Edylwise. So if you all have questions, you can type them in the chat box. And then, like I said, I will read the question. I won't say your name, and Edylwise will answer it. And then if you have questions that come up later, like maybe you don't have one now, but you think about something later, you can post it on the Hub and one of the advisors will answer your question. Or maybe you can tag Edylwise and she'll respond to you too. Okay, we got our first question. So it says, what was the hardest transition in terms of finding comfort with new people you're going to be living with?
Okay, so I think that one has to do with like my socioeconomic status, I think. So I'm low income, and coming to a place like Carleton where like tuition is like $72K, and some of my peers have like been abroad or go abroad like all the time, and also can't afford to pay all like their full tuition with like no loans, was one of the biggest transition I had. Because I think people don't often talk about like class, and like how much people make. And so because of that, I had kind of like been living in a bubble where I think people kind of make similar amounts of money and like do have a hard time making ends meet. But like being here, I've been surrounded by so many people who hold privileged identities, and I guess like that was where the hardest transition was, with kind of like the shock of like, oh snap, not everyone is poor, and there are people who have a lot of money. So kind of like navigating through that process was hard, and it I think requires a lot of self-reflection, and also learning to come to terms with your situation. And I hope that like answers the question, some of the things that I found helpful was dialogue with friends who have similar backgrounds, who are also experiencing like being in a private school, like private liberal arts school with like peers also, being from like middle to upper class, and also I would say like understanding that like you as an individual, like these types of things happen, you're in like a place in the place that you are because of like systematic things that like are also out of your control. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, next question. There's a fun question. I'm gonna save that one for the end. How are you preparing for after college?
So how about preparing for after college?
Mm-hmm. How are you doing it?
Well, I've been talking a lot to alums in terms of like what like alums with similar majors and similar interests, and I've also been using SRA's like SRA Rising Stars program has like what is it called, career mentors. So my career mentor has been like very helpful for me because I'm trying to look into human resources, and she's given me a lot of feedback on how to tailor my resume, my cover letter, and also like where exactly to look for the types of jobs that I would be interested in, and also like how to, for example, like do with my LinkedIn summary so that I catch like the right type of attention. And SRA also has like the career tracker, or is it job tracker, in the hub, I think, where I've been like kind of, because when you go through the job search, you kind of look for a lot of jobs and you apply for a lot of jobs, so it's like a nice way to kind of keep track of that. And yeah, so just making sure like you're connecting, you're having conversations with other people too, and expressing your interest and letting them know, hey, I'm graduating, looking for a job, let me know if you like hear of anything that I might be interested in. And also practicing your elevator speech. So yeah.
Good answers. Okay, next question. What are the best ways to build relationships with professors to get letters of recommendation in the future?
Okay. Well, the first thing is being a good student in class, which means that like you come to class on time, you go to class, but also like going to their office hours, whether or not like that's to ask questions or just kind of say, oh, like this thing that you said earlier, like really captured my interest. But like being genuine about the interactions that you have. If you go to a big school, I think that's might be a little bit more difficult, but like going to their office hours is definitely a good start. Try if they have I think like research that they're doing, you could also, and if that's like interesting to you, you could also ask them if you could volunteer or like take part in it. Yeah, just developing that relationship early on, and like also taking multiple classes with them, if they teach like courses that you actually like, is a good way to do that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think this is our last question. It's, what's your favorite struggle meal?
Oh my god. The struggle meal that I crave all the time is carne asada burrito. I have no idea why, but I was just craving that like a couple days ago. I think it was yesterday, Sunday. Yes, from El Triunfo, which is like down the street, which you can see in my photos. Clearly, I have a favorite restaurant here.
Alrighty, well, thank you. Thank you everyone for asking questions. Thank you, Edylwise, for hosting. Do you have any last pieces of advice?
I think try to have as much fun in college as you can. Don't sweat the small stuff. So I definitely did that freshman year.
Doesn't get easier once you graduate. All right. Okay. That is everything. Again, if you have questions, you can post them on the hub or reach out to your advisors. We're always happy to help. Thank you again, Edylwise. We're going to post this on YouTube if you guys want to share it with any of your friends. All right. See you all soon. Talk to you later. Bye.